3 spine-chilling true horror stories discovered a sinister circus haunting every night I knew. Sarah sat on the sofa, snuggled up with her kids, Emily and Jake. Their laughter filled the small home, a sound that had always felt like a warm embrace. But tonight, something sinister lingered just outside their open window. The air shifted, thick with an unsettling melody, haunting notes that sent a chill creeping up her spine. The sound of a carnival gone wrong, distant and eerie, invaded their cozy sanctuary, making the room feel smaller, suffocating. "Mom, what's that?" Jake whispered, eyes wide, clutching his sister's arm. Emily's gaze shifted nervously toward the window, her face pale, as if the warmth of the room had evaporated. Sarah brushed it off, attributing the music to some late-night revelry from the neighboring houses. But then, in the distance, flickering lights painted the walls of their living room with colors that felt wrong, thrilling yet menacing. Her thoughts turned to the old tales that had echoed through Elmwood Park since she was a child, whispers about a circus that had once dazzled but then vanished without a trace. The same circus that made the children of the neighborhood nervous to peek out after dark. She shook her head, trying to chase away the weighty feeling tugging at her gut. But as the music twisted through the tempers of the night, the shadows flickered in ways she couldn't ignore. "Jake, Emily, it's just a show," she said, but her voice betrayed her, thickening with every passing second. Jake's fingers tightened around Emily, fear blossoming in his bright blue eyes. They huddled closer, casting uneasy glances toward the window. Sarah felt her heartbeat quicken. Something was wrong. Emily started mumbling about clowns, saying she couldn't sleep because they were staring at her. "Just movies, honey," Sarah soothed, but her mind raced with the local news stories that had begun resurfacing. Murmurs of disappearances, of those who had chased after illusions only to become part of them. That circus was a living nightmare, and the hidden tales sent shivers down her spine. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But the unease tightened around her as she turned her focus back to her children, their small whispers growing louder in a game of secret fears. Shadows danced beyond the curtains, and as night took hold, the music escalated, mingling with the sounds of laughter tainted by something sinister. She could feel it, the urging desire of that circus calling out, wanting to pull them all in. No longer able to stand by, Sarah decided enough was enough. Rushing outside, adrenaline coursing through her veins, she spurred toward the flickering lights in the distance. Everything within her screamed to turn back, to protect her children, yet determination ignited her steps. She needed answers. As she made her way to the twisted paths leading toward the derelict circus grounds, the laughter of children morphed into haunting echoes, a chilling promise of secrets waiting to be uncovered. Shadows clawed at the corners of her eyes, lurking figures beyond her view, whispering unfathomable horrors. With each step, she felt time itself pressing closer, a ticking clock urging her to unravel the dark entity that threatened to claim them. The circus danced just beyond reach, its shadow dragging her closer, while a bone-chilling sound filled the air, a tantalizing call beckoning her nearer. Would she be fast enough to uncover the truth before the sinister circus claimed not only her night but her family forever? As Sarah pressed forward, the eerie melody intensified, tugging at the very fibers of her being. It wasn't just music anymore, it felt alive, writhing through the air like an insistent serpent, coiling around her thoughts. Each step drew her closer to the shadows that wavered, dancing in sync with the flickering lights ahead, their rhythmic pulse hypnotizing, almost inviting. Sweat dripped from her brow as the tug of desperation pulled heavily at her. She could almost hear her children's laughter fading, becoming part of the sinister carnival that awaited her. An instinct screamed for her to stop, to turn back, yet the dark promise of knowledge urged her onward. What secrets lay behind those splintered gates? What awaited her on the other side? When she finally reached the entrance, towering tents loomed above like hungry giants, their colors muted and wrong under the sickly glow of a half-moon. The once vibrant red and yellow stripes now appeared old and tattered, flapping like the wings of some starved beast. She hesitated, a creeping dread wrapping cold fingers around her heart. Just then, a low chuckle echoed from within, deep and sinister, sending spikes of terror down her spine. "Welcome, welcome." A voice beckoned, as if addressing a long-lost friend. It curled around her mind, just as the music had, insinuating itself into her thoughts. "Who's there?" She shouted, adrenaline pumping through her, yet her voice trembled as if lost among the shadows. "Come in, come in." "The show's about to start," the voice sang out, accompanied by the strains of a chilling melody that twisted like a knife. Laughter erupted, harsh like breaking glass, and she knew her fears were more than mere whispers now. Something was awaiting her. Eyes glimmering in the darkness, with heart pounding, Sarah stepped through the entryway, immediately overwhelmed by the stench of sweat and decay. The ground crunched beneath her feet, crushed remnants of what used to be a joyous spectacle. Brightly painted signs swung creakily from their posts, advertising attractions that felt more like warnings now: the unseen. Feast of Frights. Join us, we never leave. Her throat tightened, fear clawing its way up, threatening to choke her. Yet still, she pressed forward, compelled by an unseen force, as if the very structure of the circus was drawing her into its dangerous belly. Suddenly, the sounds of revelry were interrupted by screams, thin, desperate, full of terror. They pierced through her like arrows, igniting her instincts to flee. But a gentle caress of melodic laughter followed, as if to soothe the pain, as if to promise that nothing was as it seemed. "Foolish mother, are you lost?" A figure emerged from the shadows, clad in a grotesque jester suit, its face painted unnaturally bright against the darkness. The grin stretched impossibly wide, a mouth too large to be real. "You seek the truth, and yet can you bear it? Let me go. I'm not afraid of you." Sarah shouted, but the tremor in her voice betrayed the panic rising within her. The jester tilted its head, listening, the laughter bubbling from it now a bubbling cauldron of madness. "Not afraid? Then you are the perfect guest. The perfect addition to the show." It stepped closer, the ground shifting beneath them as the lights pulsed with an unholy rhythm. Suddenly, a chilling realization struck her. Once you entered this world, it was far too easy to lose yourself. If she didn't escape soon, she could become yet another ghostly echo, trapped forever in a nightmarish carousel of terror. With a sudden burst of resolve, she turned to run. But as she sprinted through the twisted paths, the laughter crescendoed behind her, echoing relentlessly, taunting her, following her every frantic step. In the distance, she could see the flickering lights of her home, a beacon of safety. Could she reach it in time, or would the call of the circus drown her family's laughter forever? As she dashed toward freedom, the shadows began to stretch and twist, wrapping around her like a suffocating embrace, promising that this was only the beginning of a nightmare that could consume them all. Would she manage to fight against the madness that threatened to engulf her family? The laughter echoed sinisterly, melding with the haunting strains of the carnival music. Each step Sarah took felt heavier, as if the ground itself conspired against her. Shadows whipped by, dark tendrils reaching out, grazing her arm like fingertips of the lost. The music warped, discordant notes slipping from eerie melodies to a cacophony that gnawed at her sanity. Panic clawed at her throat, pushing her to run faster. But where? The path tangled before her like the spine of a serpent, twisting and turning in on itself. All sense of direction crumbled under the weight of dread. Faster, faster she urged herself, pulse racing, breaths coming in ragged gasps. In the periphery, figures flickered, silhouettes of former souls trapped within the grotesque carnival. They lingered just out of sight, faces twisted in rapture or anguish, eternally bound to a place that feasted upon their despair. "Don't stay here." A voice faint but insistent pierced through her fear. It belonged to a woman whose face was smudged with dirt, her eyes wide and haunted. "You mustn't stay. They will take you like they took us who? Sarah's heart thudded painfully in her chest, breath hitching as she turned. The woman's mouth moved, but those words were lost to the music's pulsing rhythm. Suddenly, the shadows surged, and gloved hands emerged, dragging the woman back into the darkness. Sarah gasped, her own feet moving before her mind could comprehend. She needed to escape. But the laughter from behind grew louder, promising amusement in her fear. Run, Sarah. Don't let them catch you. The jester's voice chimed, playful and cold. No matter how far she ran, she remained tethered to this nightmare, a puppet on the jester's string. With every frantic breath, she felt the grip of despair constricting her heart. Memories of her children flared up, moments of them playing in sunlit backyards, laughter ringing pure and bright. The sweet innocence starkly contrasted with the chilling terror enveloping her now. Stay focused, she muttered, trying to shake off the tendrils of panic creeping into her mind. She couldn't allow this malevolent circus to sever her from them. Just ahead, a tent loomed larger, threads of fabric thrumming ominously. The sign above it swung erratically, almost blinding in its brightness. The heart's desire, it read. Would it lead her to the truth, or further into despair? She hesitated at the entrance, mind racing. A glimpse of happiness flickered in her mind, her children, laughing under the sun. If she could just get to them, but instinct warned her that this tent was a trap, meant to ensnare her very soul. Foolish mother. The jester's voice crackled through her thoughts. You think you can escape? You are ours now. Forever. With those words echoing in her head, she felt a tide of energy flowing in waves from the tent, beckoning her closer. Taking a deep breath, Sarah clenched her fists. She would not succumb. She had to find out what waited inside, to confront whatever lay hidden there. Gathering her remaining courage, she stepped across the threshold. The air inside the tent felt thicker, saturated with an unnameable sense of dread. Flickering lights cast grotesque shadows that danced around her like phantoms of the lost. Suddenly, she froze, a sense of vertigo washing over her. In the center of the tent stood an altar. It pulsed weakly, a strange glow emanating from it, drawing her gaze. And something lay upon it. As she stepped closer, her heart raced. What was this? What secret lay within this sinister creation? Sarah, a whisper echoed from the shadows, one she knew too well. A voice she had long feared was gone. It was her children's laughter that answered back, but now it melded with cries, fear interspersed in melodious tones. Dread twisted in her gut as the realization dawned. A choice stood before her, a decision that spoke of sacrifice and salvation. Choose wisely, mother, the shadows hummed, and she felt herself teeter on the brink of despair and hope. But could she face the truth, or would she lose herself in the chaos forever? Filled with both terror and determination, Sarah looked into the depths of the altar. What if she stepped into that darkness? What waited for her on the other side? Would she reclaim her family, or was this an ending worse than death? Terror seized her once more, but this time she wouldn't back down. Her choice loomed like a storm on the horizon. The space warped before her, colors swirling, the altar's glow pulsating in time with her frantic heartbeat. It drew closer, pulling at her like a strong tide. Shadows whispered, curling around her legs, warning her not to approach. But her children's laughter, sweet yet tainted, resonated in her mind. Could it be a trap designed to ensnare her? Or was it a chance to save what she loved most? Do it! They screamed together, their innocent voices becoming feral. We're waiting, Mommy. The agony twisted in her gut. With a deep breath, Sarah's heart thundered defiantly against the fear. She took a tentative step forward, closer to the altar. It felt electric under her fingertips, emitting warmth that fought against the cold fear chilling her bones. Choose your heart's true desire. The shadows coiled around her limbs, slithering with desperation. Feel the pain of your past or the sweetness of a reunion. A visage flickered above the altar, a fleeting image of her children, their small hands outstretched, eyes gleaming with joy. But their faces contorted, reshaping into a mosaic of sorrow and desire. "Pick us," they chimed, all echoing in unison, "or let us stay lost forever." Don't listen." A shriek erupted nearby, sending tremors through her chest. The dirt-streaked woman reappeared from the shadows, her face twisted in horror. "It's a lie. They'll take everything." The laughter from the carnival faded for a heartbeat, replaced by an oppressive silence filling the tent. Sarah felt the weight of that silence, suffocating her as it crept into her mind. She turned her back to the altar, desperation clawing at her to find another way. Her foot planted firmly on the ground, but the shadows tightened their grip, wrenching her soul. "Let me go," she cried, her voice breaking the stillness. Every muscle in her body tensed against the shadows wrapping around her. She wouldn't surrender, she couldn't. "Run, Sarah." The woman's voice echoed through the silence, breaking like glass. "You don't know what you're walking toward." With a sudden surge of strength, Sarah broke free from the shadow's hold, stumbling backward. Reality flickered, and the altar's glow flickered in response, struggling to maintain its power over her. She turned and bolted, racing towards the tent's exit. The world outside beckoned, chaotic but filled with hope, but as she neared the entrance, the jester's laughter erupted, filling the air, reverberating through her bones, wrapping around her mind. "You won't escape so easily, dear mother. Not without your heart's true desire." The tent vibrated with a sudden pulse of energy. Vivid images flashed before her children wading through fields of flowers, their laughter blending into the phantom music that seemed to arise from the very fabric of reality. The allure was maddening. "Please. Choose us." Their voices begged, growing more frantic, echoing amongst the shadows, mixing with the laughter. This was no simple choice, it was a race against time, against a nightmare designed to trap her forever. Panic surged anew, and just as she was about to teeter between the altar and the exit, the shadows lashed out one last time. They formed a wall, blocking her escape, pressing her back toward the altar, toward the truth that awaited. Sarah's breath hitched. She could feel the weight of the decision, split between salvation and annihilation. What lay on the other side? What was her heart truly yearning for? With the shadows surrounding her, tightened like a vice, every part of her screamed to flee. But the pull of the altar, shimmering with promises, beckoned her still, and then came a voice, crystal clear through the chaos, a name that sent shivers down her spine. Mommy. Panic gripped her tightly once more, and reality blurred as she stood at the precipice of unimaginable despair. Would she shatter the darkness or plunge into the abyss forever? What awaited her inside that altar? The answer lingered, just out of reach, and time slipped away like grains of sand. Her heart raced, hammering against her ribcage as she fought to catch her breath. Each desperate gasp felt like a cry for help, swallowed by the heavy silence that loomed in the tent. The walls of fabric twisted, dizzying her as she turned in circles, searching for a way out. "Mommy," the voice echoed again, a siren call that drowned out her rational thoughts. It was melodic and hypnotic, wrapped in a sweet veneer that felt as familiar as it was terrifying. "No. I can't," she shouted, her voice cracking under the strain. But deep inside, a trembling seed of doubt began to sprout. What if they really were trapped? What if this was her only chance to save them? As the shadows closed in around her, their whispers transformed into a chant, weaving through her thoughts like poison. Choose us," they begged, their voices shifting shades, now like a shattered lullaby. Suddenly, she was back in her living room, sunlight cascading through the window, illuminating the laughter of her children, dancing across the floor. She could see their little bodies spinning and twirling, carefree, innocent. Her heart clenched at the thought of losing those moments forever. "Sarah." The woman's voice rose above the cacophony, despair leaking through her tone. "They're not who you think they are. Do you really want to give up everything just to see them again?" Torn, Sarah's resolve wavered. She squeezed her eyes shut, desperately clinging to what remained of her sanity. The shadows danced, teasingly brushing against her skin, coaxing her toward the altar. Each twitch of her body matched their restless desire, but she held firm. "I want to let you take me," she yelled, her voice sharp with defiance. In retaliation, the ground beneath her shook violently, as if the very earth was displeased. The altar pulsed with an angry glow, its light flickering like a dying ember. The shadows screeched, a sound so high-pitched it felt like ice slicing through her mind. Sarah stumbled, struggling to maintain her footing. Each step backward felt like betrayal, death edging closer with each shaky retreat toward the exit. "Mommy!" they wailed, their cries mingling with the unnerving laughter of the jester. "Help us! We're lost!" "No! You're not real!" she cried, clenching her fists. Bile rose in her throat as the sound of their sorrow twisted into a harmony of despair. Just as she thought she might break, a vision lanced through her mind a single moment. Her son's fingers in hers, warm and alive in a world free of shadows. The tender memory flooded her senses, bringing with it a clarity she hadn't felt since this nightmare began. "Choice!" a voice thundered, echoing from the depths of the darkness. "Choose well, Sarah." She felt it then, a surge of power rising within. She turned, no longer wanting to escape alone but ready to confront. "I choose my children their true selves." The ground trembled beneath her, the shadows recoiling as if struck by lightning. The altar dimmed, flickering like an old bulb as doubt rippled through the air. Something shifted, the illusion began to unravel. "Mommy?" There was a momentary hesitance in their voices, a flicker of confusion, and she took a step forward, pushing courage through her limbs. "Show me. Show me the truth." But as the words left her lips, the shadows screamed, hostility pouring from their depths like a rising tide. Fear gripped her once more as the altar flickered back to life, pulsating with angry, desperate energy. Something began to claw its way out of the shadows, a figure taking form, flickering in and out of clarity. It was tall, dressed in tattered jester garments, eyes burning with an unsettling joy that sent a chill creeping through her bones. "Do you wish to see, dear mother?" he taunted, tilting his head, a grotesque smile stretching wide across his face. "Then I shall show you the price of your choice." Sarah's heart raced, dread pooling in the pit of her stomach. Realities blurred, lineaments of fear solidified, and another echoing voice slithered through the darkness. "Will you face what lies behind the veil?" As impending danger loomed, Sarah felt a distinct shift in power, a shadow cast heavier than before. What awaited her was monstrous, the altar-esque glow fading like a distant star. What truth might emerge from this nightmare, and would it cost her everything? As the darkness surged, Sarah braced herself, unable to look away from the terror approaching. The jester's laughter echoed, wretched and cold, sending a shiver racing down Sarah's spine. The shadows rippled around him like smoke, thick and suffocating, wrapping her tighter in their grasp. She stumbled back, her mind frantically grasping for coherence amidst the growing chaos. "Face it," the jester yelled, voice dripping with mockery. "You've already chosen. Your heart has danced on the strings of fate. Now, let us reveal the cost." The shadows twisted violently, whipping toward her, and for a moment, Sarah felt weightless, suspended in an unsettling void. Dread filled her, gnawing at the edges of her resolve. Beads of sweat trailed down her forehead, pooling at her temples as she awaited the truth. What horrors lay just beneath the surface? With a sickening lurch, images bloomed in front of her eyes. Forms she recognized twisted in agony, her children, trapped in a state of despair, their faces pale, eyes void of light. Each scream they let out was a dagger piercing her heart. "No!" Sarah cried out, reaching forward, but the shadows yanked them away, rendering her powerless. "This can't be real. Trapped in a realm where shadows play, the price is more than you know. Would you serve the darkness, beloved mother?" The jester-esque grin widened, showcasing jagged teeth like a wolf hungry for prey. The ground underfoot shuddered mercilessly, warping into a pit filled with blackness. She remembered their laughter in the park, the way they smiled at her, and how their hands felt warm in hers. It was those memories that fueled her fight, igniting a flicker of determination within the blinding panic that threatened to consume her. "I will not let you take them," she shouted, her voice reverberating against the fabric of the tent. The shadows recoiled, hissing as if genuinely wounded. "Very well, Sarah," the jester said, weaving his fingers together in delight. "Let us turn this dance into something more entertaining." From the darkness, dozens of ghostly figures emerged, swirling and writhing like restless spirits. They moved to the beat of an invisible drum, shifting and forming a grotesque ballet around her. An orchestra of despair played, the echoes of their tortured cries merging into a symphony she could not ignore. "See them. Feel them. They are the ones you cling to, their fate intertwined with your own. Choose wisely." His voice morphed into a deafening roar, drowning her senses in overwhelming noise. The altar surged with pulses of dark energy, pressing against her psyche. With every heartbeat, Sarah felt her connection to reality fray. Each tortured face gazed back at her, mirroring her own despair, turning her anguish into a maelstrom. Time blurred, and horror twisted into the fabric of her thoughts. But something shifted. Deep within her, a whisper grew louder, powerful and defiant. "I choose love. I choose hope." Light burst from her chest, a brilliant glow pushing back the darkness, illuminating her children's faces, if only for a fleeting moment. The shadows hissed like serpents retreating from the light. The jester's laughter became a furious shriek, echoing with fury and anguish. "No. You cannot take back your choice. The cost has been set." The altar erupted, splintering beneath the strain of her resolve. Dark tendrils twisted in agony, and with each pulse of light, reality flickered, revealing flashes of her children entangled in the threads of shadows. The figures of her children limped forward through the darkness, their faces blurred, half-formed, and filled with despair. "Mommy," they whispered, their voices lilting between sobs. "Stay with me." She extended her hands, clawing through the dark, desperate to reach them. But they were slipping away, little fingers lost in currents of swirling darkness. "Sarah." The jester's voice turned shrill. "You've awakened the price. The truth shall come at a cost one you might not survive." As the altar threatened to collapse, she pressed forward, determined to defy the incomprehensible void around her. The truth awaited, and she had to know. Would she grasp her children's hands one last time? In that desperate moment, Sarah felt reality teeter on the edge of chaos. The shadows screamed one last time, piercing through the terrific silence as a surge of light engulfed her being. But as the world erupted into nothingness, one final question loomed: what lay at the heart of the truth, and would she be the one to survive its revelation? Darkness enveloped her completely, a suffocating blanket that swallowed the last flicker of light. Sarah felt herself spiraling, an endless fall into an abyss where time lost all meaning. Panic clawed at her throat, but she forced herself to breathe, to think. Suddenly, gravity shifted, and she landed hard on cool, uneven ground. The remnants of shadows clung to her like cobwebs, whispering secrets she couldn't quite understand. A sensation of dread washed over her. She was somewhere else, somewhere far removed from the altar. Voices drifted through the air, disembodied and eerie. They echoed in a haunting chorus, blending with the distant laughter of the jester, whose presence loomed over her like a specter. She struggled to rise, pushing herself off the damp earth. The air felt heavy, thick with a terrible stillness that seemed to pulse around her. Looking around, she found herself in what appeared to be a dilapidated fairground. Torn banners fluttered like restless spirits in the wind, and rusted rides creaked ominously. The scent of decay filled her nostrils as she took her first shaky steps. "Sarah," a whisper floated toward her, soft yet unmistakably familiar. "Mommy," her heart thundered. The voices merged, tilting dangerously close to hysteria. Were her children here? The thought sent her racing through faded attractions and crumbling booths. Everything screamed a sense of abandonment, yet a flicker of hope ignited within her. "Mommy!" Laughter echoed, but this time it felt tainted, twisted. She followed the sound, every instinct urging her to hurry, to reach them, but the jester's laughter tangled with hers, mocking her with every step. At the center of the fairground stood an ancient merry-go-round. Paint peeled like skin from the carved horses, their expressions frozen in fear. It spun slowly, as if something unseen propelled it, the horses rising and falling in a disturbing rhythm. The music played a shrill melody that echoed her worst nightmares. "Sarah!" Their voices drifted, familiar yet distorted, threading through the chaos. She stumbled forward, nearly losing her footing on the uneven ground. "I'm coming!" she cried, desperation filling her lungs. Suddenly, the shadows coalesced into a figure before her, the jester now looming larger, distorted and grotesque. His eyes glinted with malevolence as he twirled a dagger between his fingers. "You think you can save them?" he taunted, his tone dripping with venom. "You've already sealed the fate. The path of shadows is too strong for a mere mother." "No!" Sarah shouted, fists clenching as a cold wave of determination washed over her. She would not let him win. Breathing deeply, she faced him, refusing to be cowed any longer. "I will fight no matter the cost." The jester's laughter rose, vibrating through her very bones, sickening, chaotic, like a deranged symphony. "Then let the game begin." With a swift motion, he flung his dagger, and it sliced through the air, embedding itself into the wooden horse closest to her. From the wound, shadows erupted, writhing toward her like a tide, threatening to envelop her once more, yet in her heart, her children's voices ignited a fire she had thought long extinguished. "I choose love!" she screamed, pushing the shadows back as her spirit surged, flaring like a beacon in the darkness. The merry-go-round shuddered violently, the ancient machinery groaning against the encroaching shadows. She dared a glance at the horses, their eyes gradually filled with life, a glimmer of hope, but just as quickly, the ground quaked violently beneath her. The jester's form twisted, morphing with rage. He lunged forward, attempting to snuff out the light growing within her, and then a sudden realization struck her: the true game was about to begin. She was not just fighting for her children, she was battling for her very soul. As chaos erupted, Sarah found herself at a crossroads, the jester's malevolent grin burning into her memory. Would she embrace the darkness or trust the fragile threads of hope? The shadows circled like vultures, and as the merry-go-round spun faster, she mustered every ounce of courage she had. This was only the beginning. What horrors awaited her in the depths of this forsaken circus, and could she somehow alter the path that fate had set for her? The merry-go-round's frantic spin blurred the world around Sarah. The once vibrant colors became a mesmerizing swirl of darkness and despair, and the shadows stretched toward her like gnarled fingers anxious to pull her into their embrace. She felt the terror rising again, threatening to choke her breath. She could still hear the jester's mocking laughter mixed with her children's voices, a cruel symphony that twisted her heart. "Mommy!" The voice of her youngest rang out again, sharp and desperate. It sliced through the careening chaos, anchoring her fleeting hope. She pushed ahead, heedless of the shadows grasping at her ankles, climbing back to the surface of resolve that was fueling her very being. "Hold on. I'm coming!" she shouted, reaching into the tempest surrounding her, yet the jester blocked her path, amusement dancing in his eyes. "Ah, sweet Sarah," he chuckled softly, "do you honestly think you can battle the darkness within? Everything you touch becomes tainted. Your love will be your undoing." With his words, he lunged forward, the dagger glinting ominously. Instinct kicked in, her body moving before her mind could catch up. She dodged, feeling air whistle past her cheek as the dagger embedded further into the wooden horse. A scream erupted from the depths of the carousel, the horses began to whine, and their painted eyes flashed with unnatural light. In that moment, before she could take stock of her surroundings, icy hands gripped her shoulders from behind. She spun, her eyes wide as she faced an apparition cloaked in shadows, the twisted silhouette of a clown, laughter ringing hollow in her ears. "Playtime, dear," it chirped, revealing a toothy grin formed by sharp, uneven teeth. Sarah's heart raced as her instincts screamed danger. She staggered back, barely keeping her footing. "They are waiting," it added, voice crackling like a broken radio. "Lost and alone, just like you." Her vision flickered, the fear bubbling in her throat transforming into something sharper, a relentless rage. "Leave them alone. You don't own me." As if responding to her defiance, the fairground around her began to warp. The ground rippled, and for a fleeting moment, the chaotic sky above revealed a canvas of nightmarish shapes, clowns juggling their own heads, figures trapped inside distorted rides that twisted and turned beyond the natural laws of reality. From every corner, echoes of lost souls gathered, their moans merging into a cacophony of despair. Flickering lights cast distorted shadows that danced, pining toward her, urging her to join them in fear. But she gritted her teeth. She was here to fight. "Your love cannot save you," the jester sneered, smirking as he twirled the dagger menacingly. "Love is merely an illusion, one I intend to shatter." In a flash, he lunged again, and she raised her arms instinctively, calling forth every ounce of light she could muster. The dagger met a wall of shimmering warmth, colliding with her energy. An explosion of colors erupted in the surrounding air, blinding and intense. All at once, the laughter ceased, silence swallowing the frantic landscape. Only the echo of her heartbeat remained, pounding in her ears. The downward spiral had halted, but the jester hovered before her, eyes filled with rage. "You think you've won?" he hissed, teeth bared, face contorting as if a mask was slipping. With the pause came a flicker of clarity. She felt the ground shift beneath her again, and in that shift, she glimpsed the distorted silhouettes of her children, trapped in shadows. "No!" she cried out, dread gripping her stomach. "I will save them." But just as she took a step toward them, the jester beckoned with a sly grin. "Each choice you make will lead to darker revelations, sweet Sarah." This game is far from over. The fairground erupted back into chaos, and shadows twisted around her, a storm of despair that felt both suffocating and exhilarating. She realized the true test had just begun, and she could only move forward, deeper into the heart of this nightmare. What if she was not alone? What secrets lay hidden in the depths of the cursed grounds? Would she be able to navigate the treacherous game that the jester had set, or would her shadows consume her whole? The carousel stood still, the silence deafening after the explosion of colors that had painted the air. Sarah felt the weight of the jester's gaze on her, a cold, malevolent presence that prickled her skin. She looked back at the horrific scene. The shadows flickered with life, twisting and curling like smoke, contracting into whispered threats that grazed her ears. What lay beyond the carousel's gaudy facade? Determined to fight, she took a step toward the silhouettes of her children, the ever-present need to protect them surging through her veins. The jester, however, was faster than her desperate will. With a flick of his wrist, he spun a dark tendril of smoke from his fingertips, wrapping it around her legs. It tightened, pulling her down, anchoring her to the ground. "Do you understand?" he crooned, each word oozing with a sickly sweet malice. "Your children are mere bait in my game, sweet Sarah. The longer you linger, the deeper they fall." "No!" Sarah's voice broke, tears pricking her eyes. The shadows pulsed around her, teasing the edges of her sanity. She leaned forward, gritting her teeth, feeling the icy grip of his magic tearing her resolve. "I'll never give in." Suddenly, a tremor rumbled beneath her feet, shaking the fairground with a low growl. It felt alive, angry, as if it was resisting the jester's rule. The twisted ride squeaked and creaked, writhing in agony, desperate for release. She could see them now, her children, flickering behind the glassy surface of an old funhouse mirror, their faces twisted with fear and longing. They were here. Somehow, they were close. She could almost hear their soft sobs over the din of wailing laughter. Their little hands pressed against the glass, pleading not just for a rescue, but for a union that felt almost impossible now. The jester recoiled, his amusement waning. "You dare challenge me?" He brandished the dagger again, a glint of anger igniting in his eyes. Behind him, shadows twisted, forming faces that snarled with intent, lost souls from the fairground, bound to his will. "You're about to learn the hard way that courage has its cost." With a spectral howl, the jester lunged, but this time, desperation ignited a primal instinct within Sarah. The warmth of her love surged stronger, unfurling, wrapping her in a protective shield of golden light. The dagger clanged against her barrier, sending shockwaves rippling through the air, but Sarah pushed back, bending the energy towards the darkness. "Let them go!" she shrieked, every ounce of her spirit infused in that command. The air burst with light, and for a fleeting moment, the shadows shrieked and shrank back, as if burned by the illumination of her fierce love, yet, almost as quickly, the jester's laughter returned, cold and mocking, as he began to weave a spiraling pattern above them. "Ah, imagine the choices you'll have to make. More fun for me, of course. Shall we see who pays the price?" He taunted, and the darkness thickened, coiling around Sarah with a violent pull. Suddenly, the ground beneath her splintered, sending her tumbling into an abyss of screams and laughter. Sarah grasped for anything, her heart pounding like a drum. Where would she land? Would this chasm lead her to her children or drown her in despair? The laughter faded into the distance, but silence came as a veiled threat. In that stillness, shadows breathed around her, whispering secrets and truths she was not ready to face. The memories of joy and laughter twisted into grotesque echoes of the past, squeezing her heart as the circus of horrors unleashed the shadows of her own guilt. She needed to find them. Her children needed her strength, but even as she fought against the weight of the dark, a new voice emerged from the depths, soft yet unmistakably familiar. "Mommy." The call was clear, a beacon in the darkness, but with it came a gnawing dread, the unmistakable knowledge that they were not alone in their torment. What grotesque figures were hiding in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to pounce? How far would Sarah have to venture into this nightmare to save her children? The chilling thought gripped her. Was she even ready for the truth the jester had yet to reveal? The darkness began to swirl around Sarah, tightening its grip, yet inside her was an unquenchable blaze, a mother's heart refusing to dim. "I will not lose you," she breathed, pushing against the shadows with fearsome resolve. "Whatever it takes." The abyss sustained an eerie stillness, and as she steadied herself, she felt a fracture in reality, a shift that echoed like the sound of shattering glass. She drew in a sharp breath, the air twisting around her as if the very fabric of this nightmare was unraveling. An image broke through the chaos, vivid and all-consuming. It was her children, Jake and Emily, calling out to her from a distance, their laughter mingled with sobs. "Mommy, help us," they cried, their eyes wide with fear and longing. The sight ignited a spark in her soul. "I'm coming," Sarah shouted, her voice carrying the weight of 1,000 mothers' love as she surged through the black mist. Each step felt electric, the shadows snapping at her heels, growling with ferocity. Yet, memories of sun-drenched afternoons, of laughter mixing with the wind, propelled her forward. She tore through the writhing darkness, determined to shatter the nightmare with her light. As she neared the flickering forms of her children, the jester's laughter erupted, booming through the chasms of despair. "Foolish mother. They are merely illusions, reflections of what you desire. Will you sacrifice everything to save ghosts?" His voice coiled around her, an intoxicating mix of mockery and enticement. "No." She spat, every ounce of courage swelling in her chest. With a triumphant yell, she pushed her palms outward, summoning the love and light that flowed within her. "I choose to believe in their reality." The shadows trembled, just for a moment, as a silvery light burst forth, illuminating the space with phosphorescent brilliance. For the first time, Sarah could see clearly, the grotesque forms twisted in fear, recoiling from her eruption of determination. "Face the truth." The jester hissed, his features contorting in fury. The shadows undulated closer, wrapping around her like serpents, trying to pull her back into obscurity. With another furious cry, Sarah lunged forward, reaching out for her children. I will not let you take them from me. The tendrils could not grasp the purity of her intent. Light poured from her fingertips, sizzling the darkness as she edged closer to her children. Believe in me. Mommy. They shouted again, their voices clear and strong. She felt the warmth of their presence slowly breaking through the shadows, like the dawn piercing through a long winter's night. That in an instant, the shadowy figures congealed back, the jester's anger bubbling over. You will regret this choice. He roared, trailing wisps of dark magic flaring toward her. She could feel their torment pressing on her mind, forcing her to doubt, but she steadied herself, recalling the warmth of hugs, the joy of silly songs sung on car rides, and the innocent laughter that once filled their home. A bold grin pushed against her lips. You underestimate the power of love. With that, she thrust her hands forward, channeling every joy, every memory, every heartbeat into a singular vision of truth, a shimmering portal back to her life, where joy and laughter weren't just distant echoes. The shadows screeched, struggling against the blinding light as everything around her began to spiral. Reality snapped into focus, the carnival of despair crumbling, its laughter twisted into agonizing wails. As she broke through the layers of darkness, she felt the grip of the abyss loosen, her children now just an arm's reach away. With a fierce determination, she lunged forward, catching their hands tightly, her heart racing with frantic relief. I've got you! She exclaimed. They looked up at her, the light illuminating their faces that shimmered as if they had returned from the depths of shadow. Mommy, we were scared. They clung to her, a living bond ignited as the darkness faded, revealing a path bathed in hope. Together they turned, racing toward the fissures of light ripping through the chaos. Is this real? They whispered, breathless with wonder. More real than any shadow, Sarah promised, her heart swelling as she pulled them closer, guiding them with her unwavering light through the tumultuous landscape unraveling around them. I will always find you, she murmured, determination bursting with every step. Just as they crossed the threshold into safety, the jester screeched one last, furious cry, swallowed by an explosion of light that signaled the end of his curse. The shadows shattered, spiraling away as hope and joy surged, reforming the world they had barely escaped. As the remnants of their nightmare faded away, Sarah found herself outside once again, her home safely nestled beneath the stars, the air fresh and warm. She dropped to her knees, holding her children closely, feeling their heartbeat echo against her own. They were finally free. Let us never forget what we fought for, she said, her voice fierce but tender, clutching them tight. Together, they whispered, warmth filling the void that had once threatened to consume them. With renewed joy, they stepped into their home, laughter intertwining with newfound lightness, knowing that together they could face anything. As the door swung open, Sarah reveled in the freedom of being together, filled with a resolution more powerful than any darkness. And in the hushed corners of time, echoes of the jester faded, buried beneath the strength of love, forever a reminder of their odyssey but no longer a shadow over their lives. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for more gripping stories like this. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and bring more wild tales to life. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. I want to hear all your thoughts on this wild ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.